Welcome to the You Big Talker Talk Show.
You Big Talker Talk Show.
You Big Subscribers, Jovan, and two anonymous people too embarrassed to have their subscriptions public, which I get. We have an awesome show for you tonight. My good friend, she's somebody I've known for over 20 years, is going to be on the show all the way from Seattle. And I'm super excited to talk to her about civics, about maybe even how she is responsible for You Big Talker. We have a tiny house tour. We were interviewed by infamous tiny house company. We have some other timely sketches. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Should we have masks?
Oh, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Did you just...
Smell us?
I can't tell because with the mask or...
I think you could be a lot more friendly even with a mask on, honestly.
Yeah, your eyes, the squinty eyes,
Yeah.
right?
There's nothing. I mean,
Although she had sunglasses on.
oh,
Yeah. Interesting. I think we're stuck. I listen to Reply All podcasts, but basically the show talks about QAnon and just a crazy guy who started dropping, what did they call it? Q drops. And the Q drops are kind of like clues of that this person would interpret. You know, it's like, why don't they just call them Q-tips? Oh, thank you. Recently, Eddie Van Halen died, and I was sad to see that. He was one of my three childhood crushes, the other two being Richard Simmons, the exercise guru. He was so nice. I didn't know that he didn't like women. Not that it would matter. I didn't have a chance anyway. Even when Mom and I went to his exercise program that was touring through Seattle, because he called all the children up, which could be creepy, but it wasn't for Richard. He was just genuinely a warm-hearted person, or is. He's still alive. Anyway, I became afraid and hid behind my mother. Eddie Van Halen was another person I had a crush on. I had a big poster of him on the wall next to the cutout from the newspaper of Richard. Luke Skywalker was the other crush. Sorry to see him go. There was another interesting article on the data of protests. 95% of protests were not violent. That's kind of a high number. His article is about, is election violence possible in America? Is that something we should have to fear? The short answer is we don't know, but most likely not. Data suggests it's unlikely. The 95% comes from 12,607 protests in the U.S. The VP debates, of course, the favorite moment was the fly. I also posted our song about bugs resting. So the whole song was about how noticing how bugs tend to rest. Town Hall. Anybody watch that? I checked in with a couple family members and one of them was doing puzzles. Shout out to Mom. I watched it. It's in Philly. Why not? I interviewed my Aunt Cheryl because I'd always known about the story where she left Iowa for California with a sign that said she has risen. Now she's involved with the Raging Grannies and they do a lot of protests. They're trying to get out the vote. They, do a lot of Black Lives Matter actions and environmental actions, things like that. So I just wanted to find out more about her work and also encourage people to vote for Biden and Harris. Please check it out if you haven't. There's a lot of cool pictures. I always talk about what's in the first episode, how I'm a little clumsy. I break things. I've had some accidents. I dropped a coffee glass on my foot and had to get it stitched up. But then I thought, God, I never talk about what hasn't broken. This goes out to the mug that I haven't broken. It's been a good long time. And now for our commercial break.
You Big Talker, brought to you by Zata.
Welcome to Titillating Tiny Houses. I'm your host, Tiny Tim. I'm here today to show you an incredible tiny house. We are going to tour outside, inside, and we're going to take it about an hour for a space that's the size of most people's bathrooms. Rob, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm so excited to be here with you today. Now tell me about your tiny house.
Well, Tiny Tim, it's an 8 by 16. It's part of their Freedom line, which has a dormer up top here, which a lot of people use for a sleeping loft.
Just one dormer?
Yes, just one. It's very simplistic.
What have we here?
It is a trash can.
All right. So I noticed the wheels are still turning.
Yeah, basically what you would want to do is jack the house up and skirt it and put pillars down there. These are just stabilizers.
Well, why haven't you done that, man?
I just moved here a day ago.
Oh, show me the rest of your incredible home.
This siding is a maintenance-free siding, and you can get it in all different colors.
Why didn't you bump this out into a bay window?
I just didn't think about it at the time. But I do like how the HVAC is up high like that.
Is that a mini split?
Yes.
We at Titillating Tiny Homes, me being Tiny Tim, especially like the minis.
Here we have a nice standard window. It doesn't open, but you don't need to. It's like looking out into nature. It's very nice. And what I like about this house too, it has gutters. Like most of them don't have gutters, and it really looks like a house, you know. Here we're hooked up to water and sewer at the campsite. And this is your electrical wire that runs underneath there and plugs in on the side.
Fascinating.
Would you like to come in, take a look?
Would I? Let's go in, shall we?
Sure.
Wow, this is incredible. I love what you've done with everything. You've made it so piney. The yellow, it just pops. It pops. This is fantastic. Did you just take a shit?
You could turn a light on over there behind the microwave if you want a little more light in the place so that people could see better.
Wow, incredible, incredible. And the way you have put the wood here, and the towels, and the brush, just everything, the empty wine that you're leaving behind, wow. And then the meta, the tiny house, within the tiny house. I love what you've done here, Rob. I love what you've done.
Oh, thank you so much.
Can you show me around the place?
Sure.
First of all, brilliant. You have this microwave that takes up the whole counter. Brilliant.
Yes, since we don't have a stove, and I don't cook, I just like to throw things in there and push some buttons. Typical American.
What is this thing on top of the microwave? Please show us.
Oh, sure. So it's a nice cutting board, so save space and give more work. I can come here and chop vegetables.
Now, how do you, let's say, relieve yourself? Do you have to go to the woods and bury it?
No, we have a loo right behind this door.
Oh, you call it a loo too?
It's a nice barn door. I love the craftsmanship of it. It's very
piney.
Yeah, it's a 32-inch shower in here.
Let me take a look. Well, hello, handsome. Somebody's left their towels quite disturbingly.
Well, it's a lived-in house.
Ah, so shower. Where do you put your soaps?
I just moved in here, so right now I've just been kind of putting it on the windowsill there.
And you've got a lovely window so that when you are sitting on the loo, you can have some company. Brilliant.
And in here, Tiny Tim, is what they call the master room. Yeah.
Is this where you spend your time, Rob?
Yes. Down here I have this nice rolling table.
Love it! Brilliant! Show us how it works.
You do it like this, or like this. Or if I want to share it with a company, I'll go this way.
Who's your company?
My wife, she's not here right now.
Oh, bless her heart.
And we, of course, like TV, so we cast it with our phones. And, you know, these shades are really nice, because those strings.
How do you clean them?
You use a little duster. And also we have these sconce lights. I want to change these out. They're very basic. And here's our
This
ladder.
is the mini split.
Yes.
It heats the whole home.
And cools it as well. And then we have the fan here, too.
Does it ever cause the fire alarm to go off?
Well, if you haven't used it in a few months, it will do that, yeah.
Well, shall we see the living area from the other angle?
Sure.
Wow.
I prefer an open concept over the cabinets because it feels confined with the cabinets. Do sleep in the loft, and we have a ladder, and it's very homemade. So just go up like this.
What if you're afraid of heights?
This couch folds out to a sleeper sofa, so you can sleep in there, or you can have a guest over.
Brilliant.
Shall we?
Shall. I'm sorry, I'm a little afraid of heights.
I can. So here's the loft, and you can tell we didn't make our bed because it's a tight
Somebody's a
space.
little lazy, aren't they? Tight up there.
I actually really enjoy it, and then I love looking down, Tiny Tim, onto my house down here.
Yes,
It's such a nice view.
Yes, the view is gorgeous. It's stunning, really. It's fantastic. Brilliant. You look around and there's all these tiny homes everywhere. They're like trailer parks, but with some paint and a little flourishes. It's really brilliant. How do you tow these tiny homes? That's what I wonder. I mean, it's tiny, it's minimalist, but are you towing them with a semi-truck? Is that minimalist? Is that really tiny to be driving around? What is the underbelly of the tiny home? Oh, sorry, I'm having a bit of an existential crisis there. Tiny's good. I love Tiny. Oh, Tiny. Oh, Tiny. The trees are tiny. Everything's tiny. I'm Tiny Tim. How do you put the ladder back?
Pick it up like this and bring it over here like this.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Stunning home, Rob. I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you.
Can I ask you how much it cost?
23,000 maybe.
So this is the incredible tiny home freedom line.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's customizable.
Yes.
Well, I just love the details that you have here. Just perfectly executed. What land does this sit on, Rob?
Tiny estates.
Elizabethtown, is it?
Yes.
Have you ventured to the downtown area?
There's not much there, honestly.
Okay. Just wondering what was going on with this sign here. Well, people love the vape. Put that on there.
Well, if they're gonna smoke, they're gonna want cigarettes.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of cigar lovers.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who just want to get lucky, play the lottery.
Yeah, there's that, and everyone's always looking for bread.
Well, yeah, you gotta feed the family.
It's very car centric.
Brilliant! I, for one, love the shadow that the tiny home casts upon society, reflecting a time when all will be tiny. Today has been very illuminating. I just absolutely love what Rob and his wife have done with this home. I just can't tell you how comfortable it is, how piney it is. I love the big microwave. Everything is just brilliant. They don't make their bed, but it's okay. It's okay. It's a tiny home. You could do what you want. That's the point of the tiny home. To do what you want. It's freedom. This home is called the Freedom Line. We are free as a people in this home. There's no conflicts. You don't get mad at each other for bumping into each other in the tight spaces. You don't get hit in the head by elbows when you're in that loft that's unbearably small. You are free. This has been Tiny Tone for Titillating Tiny Homes. Thank you.
She just throws her stuff everywhere.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love tiny houses, and this has got to be one of at least my personal favorite sketch that we've done so far. There's something comforting about a tiny house, and I think it's the lack of things around you maybe, or being surrounded by, in this particular tiny house, all natural wood.
I love tiny houses as well. I just don't want to drag mine around the country using a lot of gas.
Yeah, and most people actually don't do that, statistically, if you look at
What are the statistics on that?
I did some research, and it's fake. It's fake news.
Where are the crickets? So what are your favorite tiny house shows?
Incredible Tiny Houses. Obviously, that was the one that one of the ones that we stayed in that they had built.
He's in Tennessee. We might be staying with them on our way back from New
Yeah,
Mexico.
and-
One we stayed in is new would be around 32,000.
Yeah.
Tiny House, Giant Journey.
Yeah.
She's great. Oh yeah, Living Big. He was our inspiration.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not offended. We were talking about that the night. We're like, would he be? Not that he's going to see it, but
No.
you know.
But I really like him personally because he's a super nice guy. Like, I really think he gets excited. He's
Yeah,
like,
he really is excited. He's not hard on the eyeballs.
Whoa.
Whoa. Hello?
Hey, this is Frank. I'm calling.
Who's
Hey.
this? Frank? I don't know any Franks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have the wrong number.
What the wrong? How dare you call the wrong number? Do you not know how to dial?
Have a blessed day. I'm sorry to bother you. Bye.
Blessed. So our next segment we have is called Cool Stuff up here.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a new feature Google has, Google Hum.
I haven't heard of it before. Huh.
Yeah, so you can hum a song and then supposedly Google will find out what song that is. So I'm going to test and see which is better, if Google Hum or you. So here's the song. You ready?
Let's do it.
We haven't rehearsed this.
I think Google's got me on a beat on that.
Gosh, I can really hear it. Whoa. Look at what does it say? What does it say?
Van Halen.
Oh, it's hard to see with the
Go
reflection.
ahead, jump. Off the jump.
Yeah. Look at Google's better. So the Google's going to save a lot of
And
relationships.
it said 17% match, by the way. Just wanna
Well,
put
I don't
that
know
out
what's
there.
normal. Like, you
It
know,
could have been also 9% match, Can't Stop Loving You.
and
or-
Find Your Love by Drake, 11% match.
So
Better
that reminds me of like, so I was in the park.
I thought you were going to be like Ed McMahon, where you're quiet and laugh at my jokes.
I was in the park and doing weapons work. We were talking terms, and then Wikipedia came up on my phone and started telling me stuff. I wasn't even asking for it, so it's a little scary.
Yeah, your phone kind of listens in a little more than mine does.
I think all technology listens in.
Yeah, I guess it's just not that interesting what we're saying. So, I mean, we're here broadcasting, so we obviously want to be listened to.
There you go.
That was, you have to, the laugh has to be more sustained, so it's believable. I want to give a shout out, well, one to the crickets that clean. One to the crickets that Rob puts on every night so we could sleep. We had one cricket here in South Philly, not a lot of habitat.
It didn't happen.
I don't know what happened to him, but he's gone. But I wanted to give a shout out to the ambient channels like Calm by Nature. And they have these beautiful settings of rain falling and you're on a porch and there's the woods. There's another one called New Bliss and they have these old libraries and with books and sometimes they have the sound of people writing. I don't know, it's just very relaxing. It's on YouTube. I'll include a link to one of them. The last cool thing I was going to share with you, Wendy Spitzer of a musical project called Felix Obelix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she just released, it's called Pieces of Grief. She had people call in to a hotline and share something about loss. And so I did participate.
I do need to take this off because I feel like I need to shout. I am recruiting working on my toaster. Nice. I still remember the very first time I walked into the road. And that was not the first time that I'd been in a lesbian queer girl bar, because in Tallahassee, we had a women's bookstore. And then at the women's bookstore, you could read about all the various groups that you could come to and attend. It was called Ruby Fruit Bookstore. So back to the Wild Rose. So I walked in and just waited, but yeah, that was my first experience. So I have always personally felt like I have identified more and felt more connections with gay men. The ease in which gay men approach casual sex, it's beautiful. And I'm not saying it's emotionless sex that I'm talking about, but you know.
Like a hookup.
Yes. Like to just have your sexuality and enjoy cheap, raw, in the moment sex and then handshake and
Be on your way.
nice to know ya. You know, and there's a lot of processing like ad nauseum. And this is where I talk out of the other side of my face. When I am in a relationship, I'm in a relationship. I try to walk an extremely ethical line when it comes to other people's feelings. If it comes to my awareness, whether they're aware of it yet or not, and that if they have developed feelings, I believe that it is my responsibility to stop. No matter what that person says, my perpetuating the relationship from that moment forward is feeding into and perpetuating the feelings and hopes and
fantasy
aspirations that person may have. If somebody is gonna let you be a doormat to them and let you treat them like shit, you're still a fucking asshole for doormatting on them and treating another human being like shit.
nice.
I'm putting my earrings in.
Yeah, this is a very sophisticated show. So I hope, yeah.
Well, I saw your necklace, actually. That's what cued me in. Do you know that those questions stay in my drawer the whole time?
And what a better place to be. Yeah, they were a lot of them
You're
were
there, look in my handwriting. Here's one. Do you know what? If we had actually followed through with this, we would have so much money right now, because so many of these games were literally made right after we came up with this idea.
So you're responsible for the site, My You Big Talker, which was kind of about like at Big Talk and asking questions that are more interesting than the weather. We started coming up with questions, and most of them, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 75% had to do with relationship issues, including things like, if your partner became incontinent, would you stay with them? But that's how the game started, right?
That is how the game started.
Did you watch the town hall last night?
You know what, I gotta tell you, Bears Breaking In is an awesome YouTube search for watch it. There actually is Bears Breaking In. It's a theme.
This person was the one responsible for the squirrels yawning tip in another video.
What do you think people should learn in civics? They have a responsibility, and they have a responsibility to understand how their government works. 3 branches of government, separation of power. What's that about? You know, show some curiosity. My pet peeve are the complainers. Complain and don't vote.
Why do you think they don't vote?
In great part because they're lazy. I don't think it's this like, oh, I can't, I don't even think that they have enough to be saying that they're not voting on principle. So Shaquille O'Neal is the one who just came out with, saying that he just voted for the first time in his life. And he's not young. And he said, I really didn't think that my vote counted because I didn't understand the Electoral College. And I now understand the Electoral College, because he was shocked to understand how it is that Trump won. There needs to be acknowledgement that white people have a different reason for not voting than Black people. Black people have different reasons for not feeling like their vote doesn't matter. If I'm going to say that people don't vote because they're lazy, I need to be clear that I'm talking about white people. Way more marginalized and disenfranchised populations in this country have different reasons to not vote. I won't say they're good reasons. I understand. Their vote counts. Their vote is extremely important.
I think it was the first episode I did. I've only had 2. I was talking about shame, but it was relating to wearing masks and how it didn't work to shame people into wearing them. You had made the point that sometimes, shame can be helpful.
I think in a world where no one feels any shame for their bad behavior is not a world in which I want to live. I shamed a pool full of probably college-age boys in Mexico. I started noticing that they were noticing my guy friends who were couples, and were acting like couples, not salacious couples, but just your, classic, normal,
loving couple.
My girlfriend at the time had swam over to the pool bar, so was kind of in front of them to order drinks for us. I'm watching them laugh at her because she's in a one-piece women's bathing suit, but she physically presents as more masculine. Naturally also has, a little facial hair. She chose to live in her body and be herself and be comfortable.
As all men do.
Yeah, exactly. One of them said, and they all concurred, that she should just choose. And that set me off. So I go over And as I approach, I say loudly, "Oh, does she? She needs to choose, does she?" And they all like, "We didn't know. We just didn't understand." And I say, "You should never make fun of something then that you don't understand. Educate yourself and learn about it, but don't make fun of it." And then I did the shame on you, shame on you, shame on all of you. Then the nerve of the punk with the aviator glasses gets from the bar and actually kind of comes over and says, "Hey, listen, we're all just trying to relax here. Like, I'm the nuisance. I'm the nuisance." And I say, "Relax? Really? Do you think it's very relaxing for all of us to be here in this pool listening to that? It's not. It's not relaxing at all. So you can go back to the bar and sit down and relax." And he had nothing to say. He backs away. And then a guy and a girl came into the pool and approached us, and he's putting his hand out and he's like, "I just want to apologize. I'm really sorry." And I said, "You know what? I don't need to shake your hand and I don't need to accept your apology. Just learn from this moment and be a better person." And here's the great thing, Lenny. For the next 2 days, not one of them were allowed to be back in the pool.
I mean, you put a mirror up and reflected at them.
Yeah. And they did feel shame.
Yeah, the unkindness of their behavior. And
Yeah.
so if we're talking about something like masks and you see somebody out wearing masks, and if we were to say to these people, "Shame on you," that wouldn't necessarily work.
Right. No, you're right.
But if we pulled them aside, in some way and just said, "I had somebody really close to me die because, or whatever," just like had a real conversation about it, that they would still feel the shame, but it wouldn't be like a defensive way or something.
But what you're saying, I agree, is that a disproportionate amount of shame elicits the defense mechanism of feeling like a bad person. And when that defense mechanism kicks in, then you lose your audience.
Do you have the game questions in front of you?
Here's your writing. Here's my writing on the other side. I'm gonna randomly reach into this little pocket. It says copyright Olivia and Karen. It says the death penalty, then it says drowning, falling off cliff, lying on ice till you die.
What's one more question in there?
This is my digging face.
Yes.
Oh, that's really funny. Ask your own question. I'm gonna go in one more time. If you wrote a goodbye letter, i.e. suicide, in parentheses, what would you say? It's my handwriting this time. This is really funny. If your non-vegetarian friends believe the free-range chicken they ate was, in all capitals, free, would you tell them otherwise? Oh, God, that's good.
Still feeling a little neglected by the vegan activists who didn't quite do their job. There was sort of the betrayal question, which wasn't a betrayal until it was answered, which was, who would you call if the airplane was going down? And of course, my name was never mentioned on any answers of anybody. I remember somebody put your name. But you would be a very good airplane call.
Oh, I do crisis calls good.
Yeah, my thought was that there should be more social work responses versus police responses to these calls.
One thing I've heard is take money from law enforcement and have social workers go to the crisis calls at the house, right? And this is about where you have a parent calling saying, "My adult son got a knife," and then they end up getting shot. And the parent, of course, wants to stab themselves for even involving the law enforcement who they called to help their son, who just came and shot their son to death. And this happened actually here in Shoreline years ago. And that was one of the incidences that was a part of the conversation of creating a whole new training for police so that there's specialized police officers who know how to handle like mental health crises and that sort of thing. It hasn't been, a huge success because they're police officers. I mean, and they chose that field for a reason. And I didn't choose that field for a reason. I think that we do need law enforcement. I've had my house broken into many times. I know people who've been physically attacked. Who else is going to come help you with that shit, right? But back to defund, refund. I don't think that it's fully accurate to say that you can take money from law enforcement and give it to social workers to go to respond, go driving and dealing with all this. Because here's the thing, even with the homeless population here and the homeless camps, they're like, we don't need cops doing that. We got to have social workers going and doing that. And I'm calling bullshit on that. Social workers call police to do standby when they go do that stuff every time, period. So when you say that you're going to take money away and have social workers go do it, as if all of a sudden police aren't involved, it's not accurate.
So it needs to be like a Miami Vice team of a social worker and a cop?
It needs to be a team. I mean, I'm just super frustrated with our government, local government here. A perfect example, the first Black woman to be the chief of Seattle Police Department is gone.
Didn't she quit or something?
She quit because the city council, and their emotional response while CHOP was still up, was to cut her salary.
Oh.
After she quit, the local Black Lives Matter were like, what the fuck are you people doing? You just ran out the first Black woman to be, who could, of all the people you want in that position to kind of lead through change, is a woman, and you really want a Black woman in that position. Mm-hmm. Her perspective is extremely important and extremely unique.
I think when we last talked, you kind of expanded the way I was thinking about homelessness too, because it's that conversation that we've been having around race where, there's not one representative person for a population, right? There's yeah. And so homelessness means a lot of different things. Somebody, just getting by living in their car, or like in Silicon Valley where people live in their van because they can't afford the rent. That's exactly. A different homelessness than somebody who's, addicted to drugs or, or has mental health issues.
Florida is more kind and does a better job.
Wow, your home state.
People who have chronic mental illness than the state of Washington. Here in the state of Washington, if you are a counselor, a therapist, or a psychiatrist even, or just, clinical case manager, you're working with this person for maybe a year, right? You see them every week. You know this person really well. You know when they're decompensating. And you know when to kind of step in and go, whoa, we need to pull this back before it gets to the point where you're going to stop living in your apartment and not be there. And in Florida, how it would work is I would go to the psychiatrist and I would say, hey, Jane is not doing well. I'm really worried. Then I'd walk Jane into the psychiatrist's office, who would then evaluate right then and be like, oh, Jane, honey, you need to go to the hospital next door. And then I'd walk Jane next door to the hospital, and then Jane would get her medication stabilized and she'd come out. Fucking beautiful. Here, no, I have to call an MHP, who's a total stranger who just works in the community. They're King County mental health professionals, are now called designated crisis responders, DCRs. And I have to say, hey, my client of a year is decompensating, needs to be inpatient hospitalized, and I need to get this MHP to evaluate my client and approve that. And so if the MHP, who has never met my client once in their whole life, determines that my client doesn't really meet that threshold, then they're not going to go to inpatient treatment. The level threshold is so high. When you have a child who turns 13 in the state of Washington, if they become mentally ill and they need inpatient treatment, unless they are approved by a DCR, they won't. So you as a parent lose your ability to actually take your kid to the hospital and say, my kid's off the hook, or is doing meth, or is doing heroin. I need them inpatient so that they don't die. And here in Washington, only if the kid agrees. Here is where the laws in the state of Washington are completely in conflict with this other science that we have. In the last 10 years, the science has taught us that young brains don't even have the capacity to make decisions like that. And in fact, even in Florida, they recognized this and overturned capital punishment sentences, because of this brain science that we've gotten, it's allowed attorneys to go into court and say, science says this brain can't do that, so you can't execute. This is the liberal bastion gone too far. And how this happened is it's from this liberal perspective of people have civil liberties and they should not be hospitalized against their will. Who's going to disagree with that? Well, you'll disagree with it when it's your 13 or 14-year-old who's, licking the wall or having visions or doing heroin. Displayed this girl.
You got your shirt on. Yeah. So speaking of roses, what's going on? So you have one of the most beautiful gardens I've ever seen. It's inspired me to create our space. And you've just done so much with it.
It is my sanctuary. It is one of the few spaces and things that I start working on where my mind just like goes into a meditative place where it's extremely relaxing for me.
Where do we need to go as a people?
Away. The planet would appreciate it. The environment has shown its amazing capacity to quickly restore itself. Scientists always say it's rejuvenating like way faster than we ever thought it would.
That we would need to drastically change how we transport ourselves, how things are produced, how we eat.
I mean, I think the pandemic has been one of the best illustrations in terms of how we as a human species, particularly in this country, are going to respond to a loss of control of our environment. This is just a little appetizer.
Is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't that you would like to say?
You discover one of your parents murdered someone before you were born. They were never caught for this crime. They have clearly shown remorse. Would you turn them in?
Do I have to answer the question, or are we just sharing the game question?
There was a question mark at the end of that sentence.
I feel like my initial response is no, I would not turn them in. That's my knee-jerk response.
So long as they got you everything that you wanted for every birthday. I would answer that as depends on who they killed. But you know what? I promise you this, I would shame them. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on all of you.
Now we're moving into the section we call It's Just Food. Last month, cell-based shrimp, that's a tongue twister. Can you say it?
Shell-based shrimp. Ooh, that was good, right?
No, because it's cell-based shrimp.
Oh, I thought you said, that's how bad you said it, because I thought you were saying shell-based
Oh, really?
shrimp.
We'll see what the recording says.
Picturing a little shrimp, with shell.
Yeah. Now, see, that's a good laugh. When he makes fun of me, he laughs harder. Okay.
It's more making fun of myself, because I feel like...
This cell-based shrimp, it's made of plants, landed $12.6 million to make their shrimp. And a first of its kind commercial plant is going to open, Singapore-based company. And they have business plans to launch their product in 2022, should we all still be alive. Speaking of mussels, not really, but here we go. There's a fellow called Tori Washington who was recently interviewed. He's a bodybuilder. You'll see the picture of him here, maybe is where I can fit it.
Or...
There,
over
I think
here.
there. Yeah, maybe.
You could put it here.
Yeah, right here is where I would put it. He talks about building muscles on a plant-based diet, and he says, and I quote, you basically need an eating plan that is flexible, has variety, and doesn't cut out sweet treats, along with plenty of rest to keep the body, or his body, in tip-top shape. Or he didn't say tip, top shape. Who says tip-top anymore?
Only the Q-tip.
Joe Biden. Really like that he included sweets in there.
I know I put on some pounds. Joking, no joking. Joking aside.
Are you saying also?
No,
but
I'm just telling you about me personally.
Oh, okay. He also talks about since the 90s how sweets have improved because of technologies and things like that. But I don't disagree with that, but I would say that it's also improved in vegan foods in general, because we understand, it's like science, I guess, you understand how foods work together better. So, for instance, I can make chocolate chip cookies. I don't need eggs. They're superfluous in the recipe. Like you could try that chocolate chip cookie, it will be just as good. Or things like agua faba. It acts like an egg, but it's simply a juice from a garbanzo bean. How natural is that? We've always relied on eggs and dairy. It's sort of been a crutch. And because that's what we had. Things I've been super interested in for a long time is behavioral economics and how can we apply that to helping animals, you know, to behavior change in general, to social justice. There's actually a couple of groups that are doing this.
Veg communists.
No, not communist. Veg economist. Another hard to say item. One of the things they mentioned that I resonated with me as somebody who had co-organized the vegan challenges, the chef challenges, was I would tell chefs, you know, for instance, at the cupcake bar, she would put the word vegan on the cupcake and then nobody would buy it. Take the word off, just call it a s'mores cupcake because that's what it is. People buy it because, again, it's just food. So language matters, and I think this group is looking at that. And I also found through that the Better Buying Lab, and they also deal with these kinds of issues.
So as you can see, our quarterly reports are very, very positive to come to bat in the field because the field is where you come to bat.
Hey Brenda, how's it going? Hey Brenda, you changed your hair.
I think you have the wrong Zoom.
No, you look good to me.
I'm going to mute you. I'm sorry.
So I know you guys saw some footage of me taking the paint off the door.
Yeah, canopy bed's in the way. Oh, I got an idea.
It's in the middle. What happened? This door came from an old house in North Carolina. I got these barn hinges here on wish.com. Like, this is kind of how it works. And painted it and yada yada. Well, that was another great episode of You Big Talker with Eleni.
Oh, thanks, Rob.
Crossing the line there a little bit.
Yeah, he's supposed to.
The quiet one who laughs a lot. That's my role.
He's come up with a lot of original material tonight. So thank you, Rob, for being here. If you would like, please subscribe to our content.
All right,
click
here,
on the bell.
click.
Ding! When I injured my ankle, I found the sound of a bell online, and when Rob was downstairs, I played the sound of a bell ringing, but he didn't serve me. And then 5 minutes later, I heard a bell come from downstairs. He found a bell too.
You know, it's the simple things to keep us entertained during this COVID time.
Thanks for watching. It really means a lot.
Take care.
Are you excited to be at your first tiny house?
Yeah, I'm super excited. So this is the office. Do we need to pick up something?
Left. You go left.
Oh my god, that looks so cool. Just the office looks cool. Yeah, this is great.
So we're taking a little tour of the tiny house village.
I'm most excited about the incredible tiny house Freedom Line that thing. I like a lot of colors and the themes are all different, which is nice. Different builders. I love the pond. That's pretty interesting.